So I want to begin by saying data is began as a sort of a computational scientific term. And in the history of digital humanities, which is a changing and dynamic field of study that really incorporates 5 areas. You have computational analysis, you have digital pedagogy, you have new media, you have cultures of technology to discuss, and we have also the commentary on building digital methods, right? Using digital methods for humanistic inquiry. So we have a general understanding of digital humanities as a concept, and the language I'm using here is coming from that discourse and coming from the field of studies of digital humanities. Humanists and social scientists were looking for ways to engage with the work that we're doing in a way that zooms out a bit from the actual textual study, whatever that text is, if it's a visual text, if it's a literary text. And one of the debates in digital humanities was, how do we use computation to talk about things that are so nuanced, right? When you think about a book, you don't think about, I know that there was 50,000 words in this book, or that there are 7 characters who interconnect in this way. You're thinking about, Gatsby died and Daisy, he died in loving Daisy, and all of the things that happen, and how The Great Gatsby is really dramatic and really a soap opera, and we love to watch it, right? So you think of all the ways that Nick Calloway's a liar, and you think about nuance. You think about you sort of. I'm coming from a literary background, so I might use a lot of literary references. But just as an example, we're not thinking of how many characters, how many spaces that they occupy in that book, right? Initially, when we started moving towards that type of analysis of text, and computation became a part of digital humanities, we started thinking about how can we bring large bodies of work together to understand phenomenon over time. That's what this data helps us to do, right? So there was a debate of whether we want to call it data curation or digital curation, because a lot of these questions started happening because of the rise in using digital technology to work with text. And so now most people use these terms interchangeably to talk about bringing large bodies of work together and selecting large bodies of work for analysis, right? So data curation or digital curation. But from a production point of view, data curation is integral to the work of libraries, particularly for the way it contributes to digital humanities, because what data curation has helped libraries to do is be able to think about ways to work with publishers, or to think about publishing, or libraries becoming publishers of work, right? That is one of the concepts that we're dealing with. And to be able to serve scholars or to build collaborations with scholars, I think is the more important terminology I want to use, because a lot of this work is happening in a conversation around things that libraries can do to make some of these works available for everyone. Right. So if we think about a humanities research lifecycle, we were thinking about beginning with data curation. We're collecting large bodies of text. That's in relationship with publishers, whether that publisher is the publisher of the newspaper or the owner of the collection, the libraries, scholars who understand who the audience may be for this large body of work. And if you look at the team page for this project, you will see that the partners and the PIs and all of the team members are from a range of backgrounds: scholarship, in terms of humanities scholarship and training, librarians, administrators. There's a lot of people working on these teams that are quite interdisciplinary. And then it goes to data collection. So this is where we are right now, understanding how to use the collection, what we can get out of it. Then we go to analysis and interpretation, and then we produce out of that. I have been producing out of that data for a while, what we call thematic research projects, which is a term coined by Kenneth Price, to think about what it is that we produce as digital humanists, right? So from that perspective, there is a research life cycle. And when we get to the end and we produce these research projects, what happens is new questions about what other types of data we need to curate come up, and the cycle continues, right? So we're working in this method. And what bulk data has done for us, right? So for the last, I would say 9 years, I have been engaging with Caribbean newspapers that have been available on DLOC, particularly for my own research for my book. I have been interested in looking at newspapers to see publications by literary societies, letters to the editor, questions about education and literacy. And I have been finding a lot of material by scrolling and linking and all of this stuff. But what bulk data has allowed me to do with some of this is be able to visualize in a single instant what it is that the data is telling me about a particular year, a particular moment in history. So I know that the 1940s in the Caribbean, in the Anglophone Caribbean, were a time that literary and debating societies were a dime a dozen. They were all over. Everyone was interested in doing it. It was a format, an aspirational activity. People were interested in it as part of the middle class. And so I know that because of nuance, right? Because I've been reading these articles, I've been reading other books, I've been seeing pictures of people gathering, I have been reading the different newspapers and making connections. But what it allows me to do by having bulk data is to add a different kind of value, because then I can, one, quantify it, which humanists tend not to. There's still an ongoing debate about how we quantify what we see, but I can also find a particular moments where there was an increase in literary societies talking about war. So 1948 might be a year, 1945 might be a year that war is in the paper. 1941 might be a year that we see the word war in literary societies. Now, how do I know this? Because I probably, before we had bulk data, I had to read through every single one of these line by line. But now I can literally put the data in a way that allows me to see patterns much quicker. We call this in digital humanities topic modeling, right? And so topic modeling is one of the ways that we add value to a body of work. But what it also does is help us to be able to think about the relative size and proportions of our relationship to history, right? I think I like to kind of bring us back to that moment, because you're going into a newspaper and, oh, that's so far away. But when you pull out the data and you're looking at a sort of a long view of the timeline, it really changes your view of how recent was, right? If you're looking at bulk data as a body of work. And so on the practical level of our usage, we can think about the value that is added, but also in our analysis, in our considerations and our methodological and theoretical considerations about engaging with historical text particularly, it really helps us to shift our thinking about patterns, about cycles of social and political activity, things that we think are just happening to us. You know, it really helps us to kind of think about how things are happening in a cycle and so on. So I think there are real benefits to being able to know and interact with bulk data as one of the ways that we engage with the historical texts that we have in Caribbean newspapers.